What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast. I am, of course, your host who does the most, Ethan Smith. I hope you all are having a phenomenal Friday, December 3rd. We, of course, as you can see from my hat, are one day away from the SEC championship game, but of course, this is a Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, Locked On Pirates, where you can get all the news you need about the Pittsburgh Pirates every single day on the Locked On Podcast Network. And of course, as always on Fridays, we have Mr. Adam Bittner join the show today to talk about who does he think and who do I think can be the most surprising player heading into 2022. Will KeBryan Hayes take a notable step forward, and how much trust do we have in Ben Cherington after this week? All of that and more will be covered today, but before we start today's podcast, I want to let you guys know that I am very appreciative of you for making me your first listen of the day every single day. Hopefully you choose this podcast when you wake up or when you're on a run, or if you're in the afternoon when I drop the afternoon episodes. Hopefully you're having a good time doing something and listening to me talk about the Pittsburgh Pirates. You, of course, can follow this podcast on Spotify, Odyssey, Google Play, Apple Music, and YouTube. You guys have been doing phenomenal with YouTube as well, so keep up the good work. And with that said, guys, you know when the music hits, things get real, so let's get right into it.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And of course, everyone, welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast, and also welcome back the Fuji Master himself, Mr. Adam Bittner. Adam, how are you doing today on this wonderful Friday, where the last time we talked was in a different month? It's already the month of December.
Doing all right, Ethan. Good to be with you. Just feels like starting to feel like Christmas, so that's nice.
Well, yeah, there's something, like I told my viewers this week, that in baseball doesn't feel like Christmas, but we will be talking about that next week. I'm not talking about it this week. I didn't want to, because this is actually the first time in my life that there has ever been a lockout in my lifetime, the last one being in 94-95. So next week we'll talk about some CBA stuff, but as of right now, me and Adam have a fun topic to bring up, actually a flurry of fun topics to bring up today. And one of them is where we're going to start with is, who do you think can be the most surprising player heading into 2022? Adam, you have the floor on this. You can mention multiple guys. You could do however you would like to. You could explain why you think they will be. You can explain why some guys aren't really in your cards there. You can answer it however you would like. There's really, of course, no wrong answer, I don't think.
Yeah, I think I think we're still learning about some of these guys the Pirates have picked up this week, and I think Roberto Perez is someone I'm looking at just to learn about what he can do with this team, and I think the thing that surprised me the most about the Stallings trade is that I figured that he would be I figured that he'd be great to bring some of these young pitchers along. And so I'm curious to see, can Roberto Perez do the same thing? Can he be the type of guy that can, maybe surprise in that way and maybe be a great influence on some of these younger pitchers? I think he has the most potential as a former Gold Glove winner that I'm pretty sure has gone under the radar of a lot of Pirates fans over the years. So he's someone I'm looking at as one of these new guys that you don't know a whole lot about that, can surprise you in a good way. So that's probably my pick.
Nice. And I mean, it could be anybody on the roster as well. I do like it. Roberto Perez, I talked about him ad nauseum earlier this week. And I mean, again, you kind of already know what you're getting from him in terms of his production based on what we've seen. Of course, the last 2 years he's dealt with a lot of injuries, so that's kind of shut down most of his stuff that he's been able to do. But that 2019 season he had, where he was very good defensively, won a Gold Glove, and hit 24 home runs, I think the Pirates are definitely looking for him to bring back that 2019 for him. And maybe he has a chance to, maybe he doesn't. He's only 32, though, which I believe is a year younger than Jacob Stallings, or are they the same age?
They might be. Yeah, I mean, Jacob Stallings, I think, is older than people realize because he's He was kind of a late bloomer in that regard, so
Yes.
they might be.
Yeah, but I agree with you a lot. If he can really bring these young pitchers along and for the ride and really teach them things, like some guys that I would be looking at, especially Miguel Yajure, who could be outside of the rotation in 2022. Of course, go check out my episode yesterday where we looked at Fangraphs projections for the bullpen and the starting rotation yesterday, and it did not feature Mitch Keller or Miguel Yajure. So I feel like getting those guys along, helping them out, figuring out where their best pitch is, where their best location is, I think that's something he can do. I mean, you don't want to Gold Glove and don't have anything to say about where you want a pitch to go when you're facing a hitter. I mean, that's every catcher, but obviously winning a Gold Glove has a lot to do with that. Now, if you had to ask me, and then I'll get your feedback on it as well, it's going to be one of the middle infielders. I think that's going to be the most surprising player in 2022. I'll exclude Kevin Newman because we already kind of know what we're getting out of Kevin Newman already most of the time. Cole Tucker as well, I think you can also kind of exclude him also. But I really think that you're going to get a good dose of one of Tucupita Marcano, Diego Castillo, or Rodolfo Castro in 2022. And one of them's going to jump off the wall, I think, and do very well. If I had to pick one, I'd probably pick Castillo. I think he has a real chance to make the 26-man roster. I think he has also a real chance to start if he does very well in spring training as well. And that goes for any of these middle infielders that I think are going to be in the mix because, I mean, they have 9 of them, so they need to have them in the mix, right? But I would say probably one of these young middle infielders is going to make a real impact and help this team out. And realistically, now looking into the season, is if you say Kevin Newman is your shortstop or O'Neal Cruz is your shortstop, you figure out second base, you have a fully functional infield at that point, except like the fact that you don't have a backup first baseman anymore. But I would really expect Diego Castillo or Tucupita Marcano or one of these guys to really take a step forward. Of course, they were all people we got in trades, so again, another outside asset. I really think that they have a chance, one of them does, and I mean, they have a chance to make some noise. And the thing I'm looking forward to in spring training, if we get a spring training, considering I have to make that disclaimer now, I'm really looking forward to the position battle there. I mean, there's a lot of guys that have a chance to really crack this roster, and those 30-some days of spring training are going to be very important.
Yeah, I think it's going to be somewhat tough for some of those guys to emerge, just because they're going to be competing for playing time. So,
Yeah.
you're not just going to maybe have the luxury of coming into training, spring training, and kind of knowing that you're the guy at the position, and so I think that kind of limits the opportunity for some of these guys to make impacts. But like you said, when you have kind of lottery tickets on 3 guys, sometimes one of those guys can kind of seize the bull by the horns and emerge as a player that you maybe didn't expect to make the roster. So I think in terms of upside, there's definitely probably more there than there is at other spots. So I think that's a good pick. It's just going to be whoever travels that road is going to have to do a lot. So that's probably the downside, is that you're going to have maybe a third of the at bats that you would like in spring training. Can you make the most of those? Can you make not just can you do not just well, but make a strong impression? So I guess we'll have to see. I think you're right that that'll be the middle infield will be probably one of the most interesting places for this team, not just in spring training, but I think possibly for a long time, just because there is so much depth there, and you're going to have a lot of guys competing to make impressions. So I think that's a good pick.
Oh, yeah, of course. And then you get Nick Gonzalez and Leover Peguero down the road to add to all this. It's going to be really fun. But I think me and Adam definitely brought in some good picks there. But I also want you guys to hit me up on Twitter at Locked On Pirates and let me know who you guys think the most surprising player of 2022 can be for the Pirates. And moving forward in today's podcast, before we get into the KeBryan Hayes talk, I want to let everybody know that today's episode, of course, is brought to you by Built Bar. Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar on the market. They are absolutely phenomenal. The holiday season is here. Grab the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, or even better than a candy bar. Built Bar, filled with so much holiday goodness, rich and decadent flavor, covered in chocolate, and amazingly low in calories, sugar, net carbs, and fat. Gives you the best of both worlds, and it's delicious and healthy. There are so many flavors that you'll probably have a hard time choosing, but you can go get a mix box where they'll send you 2 of the 9 unique flavors that Built Bar has to offer. Like some of those marshmallowy treats around the holidays, you need to get your hands on Built Bar Puffs. They're light, fluffy, and marshmallowy through and through. Different flavors, all covered in chocolate, taste so good you won't believe that they're filled with protein. And speaking of that protein, these things are absolutely phenomenal. Like I showed you guys the other day, they sent me a nice little package that I have yet to open because I need to put it in my refrigerator because I eat my Built Bars cold. But if you go to BuiltBar.com, make sure you use the promo code LOCKED15 at checkout, and they will give you 15% off of your next order, meaning you, Adam, could be an existing customer of Built Bar already, and they'll give you 15% off anyway. So make sure you go to BuiltBar.com, enjoy the holiday season with a wonderful treat that tastes like a candy bar, and the best protein bar on the market. Now, as I mentioned before, we talked about some surprising players, and one guy that I think is definitely going to be under the microscope in 2022, at least for me. So, Adam, if you listen to my podcast after we are doing it and stuff, or if you listen to it other days, which I hope you do, KeBryan Hayes content is going to be the most talked about player on this podcast in 2022. Now, that could either be good, like a really good thing, or it could be really bad. Of course, the wrist injury in 2021 stopped him from his first full season. I said as soon as it happened that he was going to be out a while. I thought he was going to be out a while, and I knew when he came back it was still bothering him. You could tell it was. Is there a real shot for him? And, well, actually, before I even ask, is there a real shot? Do the Pirates need KeBryan Hayes to take a notable step forward in 2022?
I think I've talked in the past about how at times I feel like expectations got a little out of control with Hayes, as they have with Uber prospects of the past. You think back to Starling Marte is probably the best example for me of someone who got so much hype coming up through the system that even though he was a great player for the Pirates for years, he never quite lived up to what people's expectations are. And I think people are always going to have that 2020 KeBryan Hayes kind of in their mind, of a guy who had an 1100 OPS and just a massive bat in that lineup, a massive difference maker. I don't know that he's ever really profiled that way as a hitter, and Andrew McCutchen overcame that same type of thing, early in his career. He was never expected to be much of a home run hitter, and that's really what he does best at this stage of his career.
Yes.
So you never do really know how some of these guys are going to turn out. I think, KeBryan Hayes can take a step, especially with his bat, to kind of be somewhere between where he was in 2020 and where he was in 2021. I was pulling up the stats. I think I know his OPS was 689 last year. That's lower than you want it to be for a franchise cornerstone for sure. I think you'd like to see him at least up in that 8 range. And I think if he can get there, I think you'll be reasonably satisfied with the season that he has. And I think he's capable of getting there if he doesn't have injuries and the issues that he had in 2021. So I guess in terms of notable step forward, I think it depends upon, what your expectations are of him. If you're waiting for him to be the guy he was in 2020, that's a really high bar and a lot to ask of anyone. But if you're just looking for maybe a little bit of above average contributions at the plate, I think that's within his capabilities. And, we've seen that at times. And I think that is definitely on the table. But, maybe don't let your expectations get ahead of where he has been.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree 100%. And to backtrack a little bit, you brought up Andrew McCutchen. Did you, by the way, like many, whenever that guy talked about him in the Pirates Talking when he did the cap symbol, were you one of the people that like recently just learned what the cap symbol means? I know there was a lot of Pirates reporters out there that just learned what the cap emoji symbol means. So, were you one of those people as well, Adam, or did you already know what it meant?
You know what? Andrew McCutchen has me blocked. So whatever he was tweeting, I didn't see.
Oh,
So
holding screw with
yeah,
him,
I
huh?
know. I was not part of that group because I don't know why, but it's at some point, I guess in the last decade, he blocked me, so I didn't see that.
Okay. Well, like that's it's interesting. So yeah, we're gonna still be talking about Andrew or KeBryan Hayes, but I just want you guys to look at the bottom of the screen for a second while you're on YouTube. It says Andrew McCutchen has Adam Bittner blocked with like the really long face. But KeBryan Hayes, I mean, I'll be honest here. I have a ton of bias for the kid. The one being the fact that I already have his jersey. I'll go ahead and start there. His jersey is in my closet somewhere. I haven't worn it in a while just because one, he wasn't really playing, and two, the Pirates haven't been really like relevant to like watch or talk about in about 4 months. So it's been a hot minute since I put the jersey on. Defensively, I think if he would have played a full year this year, he would have had a real shot at the Gold Glove award. Um, I think he will year in and year out, which is something that's going to be very fun. But as you mentioned, the term franchise cornerstone. Now, I think that is like again with the expectations that people have set. That is what they are setting for him. Do I see him as a franchise cornerstone? Yes, but the onus is not as hard on him, in my opinion, to do really well as long as Bryan Reynolds is here. Now, I'm not saying not do really well in terms of statistics. I mean, not like you don't have to be a superstar every single day because we already have one. You know, like you can kind of be Bryan Reynolds' Robin to his Batman at this point. And I mean, KeBryan Hayes in 2022, there's about two or three things I'm looking forward to in 2022 from him that I think will definitely help him improve. Stop swinging at the high stuff. High and inside stuff killed him last year. I don't know why. He just could never catch up to it. He could never notice when it was a ball or a strike or not, and it just infuriated me. Tap into your power a little bit, buddy. Like, tap into the power a little bit that you have. You have a nice little power dynamic. We saw it in 2020. 2021, you saw it a little bit. I mean, we saw it right at the beginning on opening day, which was still probably my favorite moment in this podcast history since I've been here because I sounded like a little girl in a candy store trying to get the white mocha bark big bar thing. And I mean, I just think he's a very phenomenal player. I don't think the hype is unwarranted. Do I think it was over? Like, the hype is not unwarranted, but it was a bit much. Even from myself, I will say that I thought that he was going to have a phenomenal 2021. I even bet on him at betonline.ag to win Rookie of the Year this year, which obviously did not happen. And I mean, I think that he has a real shot, and I don't know what it's going to take for him to take that next step, but I know they just got a new hitting coach. I know a new third base coach is in place as well, so that a lot of this stuff could really move the ticker for KeBryan Hayes and move him in the right direction.
Yeah, and when we talk about people's expectations, I think I've mentioned this before that sometimes the team and especially through the broadcasters, feeds those expectations because they want to sell tickets, right? And Greg Brown's talking about KeBryan Hayes like he's baseball Jesus every night,
Yep.
on the broadcast because I'm assuming a lot of those things are sent down from above, and that's the problem that a lot of guys have run into is that even if they've become solid players, to a lesser degree, I guess you can put Jordy Mercer in that category. Everyone seems to always expect more from these young players because they're told that they're going to be, so awesome. And I think especially when you come up to the big leagues for the first few years, Not everyone is able to be that guy off of the bat. And KeBryan Hayes was in 2020 in that first really month that he was in the big leagues. I think that home run in the season opener this year got everyone real juiced and was like, all right, we're going to pick up where we left off here and we're going to just keep rolling. And then reality happened and you're going to have to deal with injuries and you're going to have to deal with things when they don't go well. And yeah, I think the Batman and Robin comparison is a good one. Do I think that KeBryan Hayes can develop into the type of hitter that can rival Bryan Reynolds in terms of impact on the lineup? Sure, because I don't know that we ever expected this from Bryan Reynolds when the Pirates acquired him. I don't, there have been times where, I think it was reasonable to doubt with the type of player that he could become. And so, but he blossomed into that. And I think KeBryan Hayes can blossom into that too. I just don't know if it's going to be 2021. That's kind of a breakout campaign. I guess what we're talking about is the difference between being a solid player and having a true breakout campaign where you are, on that national radar. I think KeBryan Hayes can do the smaller step, en route to the bigger step. I don't think it has to happen all at once with him. So that's my only thing is that there's plenty of upside with this player. I'm just hesitant to lop too many expectations onto these guys because we've seen that have a negative impact in the past.
Oh, yeah, of course. And breaking news, by the way, for my non-YouTube people, I put on the bottom of the screen, so you probably already chuckled at it. You mentioned Jordy Mercer. I haven't really said this, so if I get heat for this, guys, I'm sorry. He's my least favorite Pirate of all time. He infuriated me for a multitude of different reasons. I don't know why. It was just like, it felt like every time that I was watching the Pirates back when I was in high school, he was always doing something wrong. Like, it was like, not off the field or anything. Like, he was a great person, but it was like he always seemed like he was doing something wrong. But that's neither here nor there. Before we get into the final segment of today's episode, which you guys have been doing phenomenal with view time as well. Yeah, guys. I look at analytics. I'm not just a podcast host. I look at analytics. I am an analytical genius. I want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered for all season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football season continues to march to the playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all of the sports action this season. Head to their new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just make sure you use our promo code LOCKEDON in all caps to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, NCAA football, which you better be betting on the Dogs -6.5 tomorrow against the Crimson Tide. Boxing and UFC right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all of the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports. BetOnline is where the game starts. All right, Adam. So you're always here at the end of the week. So usually this is the reminiscent time of what happened this week in Pirates baseball. Well, a lot. And a lot of heat was being thrown Ben Cherington's way this week. And you could keep it short and sweet if you like. You could do a bunch of stuff if you would want to. How do you kind of gauge what Ben Cherington did this week and how much trust do you have in him still? Because I saw a lot of people questioning his trust in him a lot this week. So where is your standing on what he did this week and how things are rolling?
Well, I think he's doing. You have to look at everything through the lens of what does ownership want from the 2021 Pirates. I don't know. We never really know what Bob Nutting wants, what he's willing to do. To me, it seems like they've really shuffled some not great players that to kind of give a chance to some guys who you don't know. And they may not, it may end up that they'll produce exactly the same way as the names that they moved on from this week, Chad Kuhl, Colin Moran, guys like that. Listen, none of them were stars. And so I think some of the reaction here is just saying, well, hey, I don't know a whole lot of Pirates, but I know these ones, and I'm upset that these players are gone. I think that's a lot of what's going on here in terms of the reaction. That all of these were flawed players as well, and so if Ben Cherington believes that he can get similar production out of the guys he has in his system rather than pay millions of dollars to these other guys, I think that is a fair assessment for a general manager to make. But on the other side, baseball's not just about the statistics. You get attached to players even if they're not great. Steven Brault, I think, probably is the best example of that because he was always a guy you wanted to root for. Just because he was a great personality. He always wanted to. This season when he was injured, he would hop on the broadcast with guys, and injured players don't have to do that. They don't have to sit there on Zoom and BS about their team, but he did because I think he liked being a Pirate and he liked being engaged, and so I think it's natural for people to see a guy like that go for no particular reason and feel like that it's unnecessary, it's stupid, that you're going to start to doubt the general manager. Whereas I think Ben Cherington looks at things very coldly and calculates, and I think there's a reasonable argument to be made behind all of the moves he made this week. It's just on an emotional level, it's tough to take if you're a Pirates fan because a lot of people don't know half the players on this team. You and I do. We sit here and we talk about them every week, and the people who listen to this podcast every day are dedicated to this team on kind of a different level. But on the fan base at large, when you hear that Colin Moran's gone and he was one of this team's better power hitters in recent years, he's gone just because they didn't want to pay him. He was DFA'd and because Yoshi is taking down the first base spot. And I think last week at this time you and I were talking, can both of them coexist if there's a universal DH, and we don't know the answer to that question, and he's already gone. So I understand the frustration people have, and I think I on an emotional level certainly share it, but I think it's also possible that when we're sitting down at this time next year, you're not going to be thinking of any of those guys that were let go this week.
Yeah, of course. And I'll go ahead and say I don't think differently of Ben Cherington than any differently right now on Friday than I did on Monday, before all this stuff happened. I mean, I really don't. He's doing this all for a reason. I trust his track record because he has a good one. I always remind people about that. He has a very good track record. He's not just some guy that the Pirates went and picked up for no reason and said, okay, well, we're going to have you here now and do this and this and this. It's he's not just that guy. He's a very solid general manager to have. And he's basically retooled this entire system and nearly this entire team. I believe he's only inherited 8 MLB players at this point after becoming general manager. And the thing is with me is people, I understand it. You see Jacob Stallings, he's a very likable guy. You can't make any more cheater references, which is kind of annoying. Colin Moran, Steven Brault, Chad Kuhl, all those guys are familiar names. And when you hear a familiar name and see a familiar face is gone, you're going to be mad, right? But think about the trade for Andrew McCutchen for a second. Everybody was infuriated that Andrew McCutchen was gone. At the time, I'll be honest, so was I. But look who's on the team now that we got from that trade. Bryan Reynolds. He's your best player. That's why I speak ad nauseum to not trade Bryan Reynolds and extend him. Because, you might trade Bryan Reynolds and then all those players end up being good, but I think Bryan Reynolds is a different kind of guy. Back to Ben Cherington, though, I think you're really... 2022, you're going to see a sprinkle of stuff that he's been doing. You're going to see a sprinkle of these prospects. You're going to see a little kind of appetizer. To me, 2022 is the appetizer. 2023 is maybe the main course, depending on how he wants to look at it and how things go. And that's just his plan. He's already said he didn't think the team was going to win in 2022, I don't think, which is why he made these moves in the first place. And is it hard to take that big win jump total like we've talked about before? Yes, it is. But if you're telling me that instead of in 2023, they're going to contend in 2024, I'm not going to be mad. I mean, and I really, the reason why, I don't get to see this team contend often. So if you're basically guaranteeing to me that I can see this team contend in 2024 instead of a year earlier, I'm not going to be that angry. Just because, I mean, I've seen this team have 4 winning record seasons in my entire life, and I'm 23. This upcoming year will be like the 2022 season, guys, will be the 20th season I see the Pirates have a losing record. And I know some of you have seen more. So it's bad. And that's what I'm like hoping Ben Cherington brings us back, is I hope he really makes it happen and brings this team back to contention.
Well, and I think the thing that I would say is I think it feels to a lot of people like they are still tearing down, that we're still in the descent stage when you're getting rid of a Gold Glove catcher with 3 years of control left. And those are the types of teams that are the types of moves that a team makes, and they make people question. And I don't think that it's unfair, to be honest with you. And I look at the Baltimore Orioles as an example of a team that just feels like it's never really left the tearing down stage, and the buildup never really happened, and they've refused to pay almost any player who's done anything for them, and so I think it's fair for Pirates fans to be skeptical in this day and age when it does not feel like about half of the teams in baseball are competing. And not every rebuild works. I think some people probably feel like, there's an argument to be made that a team with an annual payroll around 120 million doesn't need to go through this. Doesn't need to spend 5 years tearing down, and going through a rebuild like we went through with Neil Huntington, more than a decade ago now. There is another route, and we don't know that this is going to work out. I think there's a lot of reasons to be excited, and I think Ben Cherington can be making the right moves, but I think you can look and say, is this the only way? Could this team be spending money to accelerate the time horizon here to at least be more interesting? Maybe you're not going to be a World Series contender immediately, but could you have brought in some guys this offseason too? And maybe they still will, to be fair, but I don't think this payroll is going to get anywhere close to 50 million, let alone 100 million. So I understand the way people feel, and that they lack trust, maybe more with the process than with Ben Cherington himself, and question, how many more of these rebuilds? Are we going to do this every 3 years that the Pirates are good? Yeah. Is he going to take us through, or whoever the general manager is it always going to be these long rebuilds? And I think maybe the frustration is more with that than it is necessarily with Ben Cherington in particular.
Yeah, and I feel like Ben Cherington is just kind of a figure to say, okay, well, this is on him, so let's point the finger. Like, that's right. Kind of what I think it is. And I mean, if it's anybody in that position, anybody could have done that, and the blame would have been the same way. But Adam, this was a wonderful episode as always. Always fun to have you on Fridays, the start of the weekend. And before we plug Twitters and stuff, who's winning the SEC championship game this weekend?
I'm going to go with Georgia. I thought Alabama looked like crap last week. I don't think this is their year, so I'm going to go with Georgia for sure in that game. I mean, I don't know about covering, but I think they're definitely going to win.
Good teams win, great teams cover. Hopefully Georgia is a great team on Saturday, so I don't have to stress out too much. But Adam, tell the wonderful people what you're up to this weekend, everything going on, because there's another game going on that may be important to listeners of this podcast this weekend. But everything going on with you and what you got going on.
Yeah, obviously we have Pitt Championship, ACC Championship coverage at post-gazette.com. Johnny McGonigal is our guy for that. Craig Meyer as well. They've covered Pitt all year, and they've done a great job. So I believe both of them will be in Charlotte, so definitely check out their coverage. It's been a busy week for me. A lot of Penn State coverage, a lot of Steelers coverage. So, I was kind of going nonstop. Rocky Blyer, Ryan Clark saying a lot of stuff about the Steelers. That kept me busy. So definitely check out post-gazette.com for all of that. And, of course, Jason Mackey, Mike Persak, they've been very busy this week with all the flurries of news. Jason's had a lot of analysis of kind of what it all means, and helping put some of these moves in perspective. So definitely check all that out, and please consider subscribing so that we can continue to do the journalism we love to do for you guys.
Oh, yeah, of course. And you guys already know you can follow Adam on Twitter at FujiMaster24. You can follow me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan. You can also follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Pirates. If you need to know how to spell Locked On Pirates, go for it. I know, like, some people have asked me, actually, how you spell it. And I was like, I'll just help them out so I can get the follow. But, guys, we will be back after this weekend. Due to the news cycle basically being shut down to one thing. You can probably guess what me and Gary are talking about on Monday. Good luck to the Georgia Bulldogs. I will be watching the game Saturday. Good luck to the Pitt Panthers as well. Kenny Pickett for Heisman. Adam, you're always phenomenal, man. Thank you so much. And to the listeners, make sure you go check out Locked On Bets with your boy Q and Lee Sterling to go make some money this weekend. With that said, guys, thank you so much and have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you on Monday.